Welcome to Shooters Hill Art Department, and for this short video I'm going to be showing you how to make an anthotype, which is a pre-20th century old-fashioned form of image making using these ingredients. So you have turmeric, ground turmeric, you have borax substitute, which is a kind of a cleaning product you can get from Robert Dias and kind of other household kind of places, a jar because you might want to make a larger amount and save some vodka because you need a high alcohol ratio, and this is just some kind of cheap vodka from a supermarket that's 37.5%. I've tested it and it works with this process. An object to create a print with. In this case I'm going to use a small kind of twig, a teaspoon to measure out a couple of teaspoons of the turmeric, a plate, and the reason why this is a plastic plate is because it might be that the turmeric and the vodka can stain some cutlery, so if you've got anything valuable, don't use it. Use something cheap that you can throw away or hopefully recycle, and some paper tissues, which you'll kind of see in a second why we're using it. So the borax is used for later for the end process, and we'll talk about that in a second. So to begin with, we need, and I'm going to just go for a couple of teaspoons of turmeric. The measurement is, if you look at various videos online, there's kind of differing accounts of how much you use, so you can check out other videos, but for this I'm using 2 teaspoons of turmeric, quite heavily piled up, and this is about 330 milliliters of a jar, and then I'm going to add vodka, and I'm kind of going to fill it up, so that's about 300 milliliters of the whiskey. Let's move some of that stuff out of the way. Start mixing it up. Obviously another way of doing it is just closing the jar and just shaking it up. The turmeric is going to be quite grainy, and we don't really want the grain. It's not a major problem because when it's dry you can just kind of rub it off, but anything to stop it becoming too grainy is useful, and that's what the paper towels are for. So there's my mixture. It's a rather pungent smell, and what I need are some pieces of paper. So here I have a regular sheet of cartridge paper, and you place it in the center of your plate, and you simply pour some of this into the plate, but to avoid getting too much of the grain, you take one of the paper towels, put it over there, and you can see I'm putting quite a healthy amount. I don't want to stain the table, so just make sure I rescue some of that. And you can see that the grain is sitting on the paper towel, but the fluid is passing through the paper towel, and it's going through to the piece of paper. Okay, so you leave that for a little bit for it to go through. See, I'm just manipulating it. You can see there that there's enough of the solution for me to move around on the plate now, and all I'm doing is making sure that the whole sheet is wet and absorbing the solution. Okay, I'm going to put that over there. The next thing you need to do is dry your print. Now, your print is light sensitive at this point, which means you can't leave it outside to dry. It's going, the sun, the ultraviolet light is going to change it. So you need to take it out of the plate and just let it sit somewhere to dry until it's surface dry, obviously. And then we'll wait for the next part. So our Anthotype print is now dry. It's a little darker on one side than it is the other, so I'm going to expose on the darker side. And so I'm using a UV exposure unit which mimics the sun. You can obviously use the sun. The exposure might take quite a long time, you know, kind of all morning on a really bright sunny day, and you would simply use a piece of glass to hold down the plant, the twig up against the paper. But what I'm going to do is place the twig there, and then I'm going to put my piece of paper on top. Now this exposure unit has a vacuum, which means I can press the paper up against the leaves of the twig, making sure I get a really good print. This is also, this particular unit, hold on, let me turn off the vacuum for a bit. This particular exposure unit, you can kind of program how long the exposure should be. So I'm going to go for 2 exposures of 999 units of light. And then we'll come back and we'll have a look at it once it's exposed. So I'm going to turn it on now, which means you probably won't hear me. Okay. Once the exposure has finished, you will see a very pale version of your print. Don't be alarmed by that. That's just where the light has affected the paper. It's gone pale, and where the twig was blocking out the light, it's remained the yellow of the of when it was wet. So what we're going to do now is we're going to wash it in a tray of borax and see the print come out. Okay, so now what we have is just a tray of water. There's our print, a reminder of what we were exposing, and this is the borax, and it's quite clumpy, so I just want the dust to go in there. So I'm just agitating the solution so that the water can absorb some of it. I know there are still bits in there, but I don't mind, that's going to come off okay. And then here's the print, and the print should change before your eyes. And you can see that the yellow disappears, and the print, there's a little air bubble there, just get rid of the air bubbles. And the image of the twig comes out, and there we have an Anthotype print.